Why am I so bullish on the road ahead for us right now? We've touched on all of the facilitators from a macro perspective that are coming into play alone. Things like the global reserve currency change up, CBDCs, spot ETFs, etc., etc. All of that aside, I want to touch on one of the elements that I'm keeping a very close eye on right now, and I implore you to do the same. I want to talk about what's really going on with our banks right now. And I'm not just talking about regular branch closures. We are talking about a seismic shift that's happening under the radar that most aren't even talking about, either because they don't understand what's going on or they simply are not aware. But I want to tell you that this is very well known in financial circles. I'm going to keep this specific to the US right now, despite this very much being a global concern. But I think to most of us in the crypto world, it's always a good barometer and a good trend setter to look at the largest right now and probably most impactful financial market. PNC Bank, JP Morgan Chase, Citizens Bank, Bank of America, Citibank, they are all quietly closing branches right now. In fact, in just 1 week alone, 64 branches have been shut down. So, what's going on? And I can tell you that based on conversations with my network, that I've been trying to glean as much information as possible for us from the people who are at the front, who are more entrenched in that world, certainly better positioned than us. And the consensus is that something's coming for our bank accounts and much sooner than we really ever thought possible. You don't need a PhD in economics to see that your bank account and every dollar you own is at risk right now. Interest rates have shot up to 5%, already triggering three massive bank failures in 2023. People are yanking their money out of the banks at record rates, with over $1 trillion being pulled out in 2023 alone. But get this, there's still a whopping $7 trillion in uninsured deposits sitting in the 24 biggest banks. That's more than half of all bank accounts that are uninsured and vulnerable. Meaning, if any of those banks went under, then up to $7 trillion in bank accounts would simply disappear without recourse. All that money is at risk. And we've seen this already take place to a much smaller extent with the Silicon Valley debacle. I'm talking about something now that's a lot larger and a lot more general, not just the business owners and the large hedge fund managers or the software pioneers money at risk where they have backups and probably tens of millions in other banks. We're talking about the average Joe out there. All of that money is at risk. All of those depositors will inevitably try to flee the banking system and find safety somewhere else at some point. And I truly believe that some point is coming very, very quickly. But let's get real for a minute. Do you really believe the bankers and the Biden administration are going to let half of all bank deposits simply leave the banking system and let the banks collapse? Spoiler alert, there's no way. They're planning to lock the exits, keeping you stuck in the banking system, keeping us all stuck in the banking system. Don't just take my word for it. Go and do a deep dive on Google and listen to some of the experts talking and sounding the alarm right now about that impending bank lockdown, about most bank lockdowns. They're about to slam the gate shut on our deposits, and you won't be able to make a run for it. The US banking system is hanging off the edge of a cliff, even if you can't see it. And if your money is in an account at one of the 99% US banks, there's a major risk that your account could be locked down and in many cases outright confiscated. We've seen this in other jurisdictions, in other countries, and it's always easier to stomach when it's further away. But when it's on your doorstep, it's a tough pill to swallow. This is one of the reasons why I'm so bullish on the landscape ahead for crypto right now and the importance that decentralization will play in the coming cycle and cycles beyond. Those looking ahead and seeing clearly will realize that the age of the bank is coming to an end, at least in the manner it is currently taking. How soon this happens, we'll see. But the wind is blowing into a world that will force everyone to look for better avenues to store and invest their money, or simply run the risk of seeing their funds controlled and locked away to whatever extent. The harsh reality is, as we've seen again in other countries and other jurisdictions, most people will realize this too late. They'll chalk this up to some type of conspiracy theory and suffer the consequences of not acting sooner. That's just fact. Thinking about major changes concerning your net worth is a scary process that is totally inconvenient, and most won't take the course of thought until it's definitely too late. But you know who will act in time? The banks, the fund managers, the money men, the entrepreneurs, the large business owners, basically the 1% of the world who are already primed to read the winds and act accordingly, or at least have people in play to do so for them. Those here, you guys watching this, are no doubt, hopefully, part of the small minority who are building a net worth in this crypto arena already, and that's fantastic. Some of you, however, in my opinion, don't seem to be bullish enough about what this super cycle is going to look like and the opportunities inherent for us. In fact, if Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it right now is anything to go by, some are not convinced that this cycle is going to be any different from other cycles, albeit perhaps with some diminished returns. Having been involved in crypto to some extent since inception, pretty much, I personally haven't ever touted about any cycle being different from any others. But there are reasons why I'm saying it now. The writing, as I like to say, is very much on the wall for me. So many elements aligning to create an extremely lucrative scenario for those of us who are patient enough, convicted enough to capitalize, both positive and negative for the macro climate. Our job, really, the responsibility that we hold to ourselves, our family, our friends, is to read the winds accordingly and act within our own best interest. True DeFi will reign supreme, in my opinion, and PulseChain, HEX, PulseX play into this scenario in the best possible way. And again, in my opinion, the stage is very much set for some huge returns ahead for us. So, my advice, and it is just personal advice, I'm not a financial advisor, is to hang in there, read those macro wins, keep doing your due diligence, because it should be clear to see the way the winds are blowing if things continue to shift and align in the way that they are.